Oh, son. And self-improvement in any area of bettering yourself where action is the key. A lot of people believe that books and movies are negative and just a waste of time. And I believe that they are absolutely not, and they absolutely have positive impacts on you. We're going to start with books, then we'll talk about movies later. I was the kid in class that would be like, reading is gay, and be my friend and be like, this motherfucker reading a Harry Potter book in a day, what a fucking nerd, you fucking retard. I was that kid. But now I'm the guy who's looking back at that fucking kid in second grade reading the whole Harry Potter book and been like, damn, I was as smart as that motherfucker. I was smart. I'm smart. I'm not stupid. I have a long way to go. But I was a kid I wish I would have looked at him and been like, what do you gain from this? Picked his brain a little bit. Implemented that habit a little bit. Damn sure know I would have gotten more out of the book than a fucking video game. If I go back, I'll tell you a story. The only time as a kid I really found books entertaining. It was third grade, and it was a group reading in class of a book called Maniac Magee. Now, this book is about this kid who's homeless. I don't really remember every single bit of it very well. But he's homeless, and he's got these shoes, and there's this one girl, it's during segregation and all this shit, and he's running, and he likes to run. I don't really know the full thing. I ain't read it in a long time. But one thing I do remember is the visualizations that I had gotten from reading that book. It was the first and only time during my tenure at school that I pictured the book like a movie. I remember the teacher reading it for like 30 or 40 minutes, and after she quit, I read it for an additional 30 minutes. I just couldn't stop. It was so addicting. And I remember I buried that memory deep in my head. And then whenever I started reading again over a year ago, I finally brought that memory back up and was like, damn, that could have been a point of major curiosity for me. That could have been a point that birthed a period of growth. But instead I took up the mindset of reading is gay, reading has no purpose. And I spent my whole teenage years playing video games for 14 hours a day smoking weed. I wasted that time of growth. I'm not going to say I watch YouTube videos, I learned some shit. I'm not going to sit here and say all this bullshit. But man, I really missed out. But I'm not here also to just be like, oh man, I wish I would have done this. But what I am here to do is to explain the significance of reading. And this will tie into movies later. But everything we do now is got to be, I can't snap my left hand. Everything's got to be real fast, in your face. TikTok, 1 minute videos, blah, 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 over and over. YouTube videos, click, another tab open, click, click. You got to have all this shit. People can't even watch movies without checking their phone 100 times through it. Let alone, and I'm not talking about the fucking movie nerds or exceptions or anything like that. I'm talking about the majority. Our attention span is declining. And the amount of knowledge that you can get out of a book, the amount of insight, the amount of a realization you can get out of a book is phenomenal. But that's not even what I'm going to get at. What I'm getting at is the amount of building your attention span to just study a book for an hour and a half at a time. To just stare at words and be present enough to just focus on the words and visualize them in your brain. Because your brain is very powerful. What you read in a book will visualize into your brain and make mental images just like you recall memories in the past that you experienced in real life. Books are an amazing form of gaining knowledge. And to the people who realize this, hearing me say this, they'd be like, duh, no shit, fucktard. It's just that much of common sense to people who read. But people who don't read, they choose their downtime as a video game. They choose their downtime as just time wasters that were made to just waste your time. Like, I was addicted to World of Warcraft. That game was bent around taking your real life time, working a job, and then you can pay to win in the game so you can spend more and more time in the game and feel good because you aren't accomplishing the things you are in real life. But hey, you got that achievement, you got that mount, you got that dungeon run, and got that piece of gear, you got that dopamine. Books are a quiet release They take a little bit of work and effort, but the end product is worth it. You read a book like Walter Isaacson's Steve Jobs, and you gain this sense of desire for innovation that is unmatched. You read these occult books like the Hermetica, the Kybalion, the books of Enoch, Manny P. Hall. You read these books, you read some philosophy, some Carl Jung, some Freud. You get a sense that you really start learning shit. You really start going deeper in your brain and start making all these correlations to different points. And I made the correlation that really made the realization that made me understand this about how your brain makes all these connections was I read David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me and Never Finished. Then I read Camus' Myth of Sisyphus. Then I read the Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Now these are all completely different people. One is a black man who is a triathlete Navy SEAL. The next one is a Holocaust survivor who was a psychiatrist. And the third one was born before all of those people and was just a very nihilistic philosopher. But they all tie together as in life you need to find meaning no matter what. And the meaning is found through learning through suffering. They all have that commonality. And you'll make all these connections with different things and through books and media and real life. They're very important. As well as expanding your vocabulary. I realized that I used to fill every other word with fuck and piss and shit and all these curse words. And I still curse, don't get me wrong, I ain't no saint. I'm still got a sailor mouth. But I notice sometimes that I don't go for those words as much. I have different words in my vocabulary now, and I'm trying to understand the English language more because I grew up speaking it, but I did not understand it at all because I did not digest literature. So that is another positive. Is an expansion of your vernacular. I feel kind of gay whenever I use them buzzwords because I'm just not used to them. But books are an amazing tool to learn anything. We have this thing that kind of made books obsolete right here. Any book in the world, a free PDF online. Any question or insight from a book, one click away from Google. Any book in the world summarized in a 20 to 10 minute video. We often think, what is the point? We could speed that process up so much. When the process was the whole reason to read a book. The process of putting everything away and focusing your attention on one thing that is hard to focus on for numerous amount of time is the point. It builds your attention. It builds your focus. You enter a flow state. It builds these tools in your brain that we were born with, that we have evolved to. We've evolved to gain, which is building mental images off of things we read. It develops that mental imagery muscle in your brain. So books are very important. Now let's get over to movies. Now movies can be more of a waste of time than books. If you're watching a very formulated like Marvel movie type where it's just like action in your face, there's no meaning point, there's not really a lot of artistic expression behind it, then I believe movies can be just as big of a waste of time as video games or just watching YouTube all day. Because again, action is the most important thing out of all of these, more important than books or movies. But it's important to get a little bit of inspiration and insight from these things. Now, there are certain movies that I've watched in my life that have really made me realize the power that cinema has to showcase true emotions, to showcase true artistic expression. Some that come to mind would be like Come and See. I think it's a Russian film. I remember I watched it off of YouTube because I couldn't find it anywhere. But man, the emotions displayed in that movie, I think it was 1985 when it was made, it's just unmatched. The cinematography, the way it deals with these ideas of war, because a lot of Americans have not been exposed to war, my generation. 20 years old, the people that went to war last were in Iraq, and they're all in their like 30s and 40s now. So a lot of us do not realize. I believe Come and See would be a great movie to show to many people who do not understand the thinking that how they do not understand how common war used to be. They do not understand how common it still is in lots of countries for these people sheltered in these first world places. So Come and See, Taxi Driver, of course, by Martin Scorsese. The ambiance of that movie and the idea of like this man Travis Bickle who he thinks he's so smart, but he can't think his way out of his own situation and all this shit. It's beautiful. You got there's a couple new ones. The Oppenheimer movie was alright. The main reason why I digest a lot of movies, I do a lot of the dopamine detox shit. But my grandpa loves movies. He's old school. He just like sits and watches movies for like hours every day because he's like 75 and he's been around it for his whole life. So I always make time for like an hour and a half each day to watch a movie with him, to spend a little time. And you know that movies can be fun. Movies can be like quick little in your face, like the Steven Seagal, the Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger era of like 80s action movies and shit. But whenever you go deeper and you start watching them like crazy films, those like super deep films, even some like newer ones like Gladiator, The Dark Knight, shit like that, it's true artistic expression. It's not as much of just like bullshit. There's meaning behind them. You can get almost as much as you can get out of a book in the movie. Now, the only negative about movies is they don't allow you to train that mental imaging muscle. They kind of do all the work for you. But I believe movies can be a very good tool for inspiration if you're an artist. So, this wasn't meant to be a very long video. I was just going over some of the pros, cons, and why people should read and why people shouldn't avoid movies and all. And if you're watching this video, I'm out of town, like 5 hours away from where I live on a construction job up in Oklahoma. So I had to make 3 videos today quick to pump out over this 2-day period that I'm gone. So they might not be the best. Better videos coming whenever I come back. Chase paper, enjoy nature, old son, and have a great fucking day. Oh, I cursed.